Good morning, Andy Harrison, Lightcliffe Volkswagen, Liverpool here. Thought I'd put together just before work starts today on Wednesday, what are we today? The 14th of October. Naturally, there's loads in the news with Volkswagen, so lots of different media versions of the emissions. So I spotted a great article in October's edition of Fleet News, which I think just gives a better and a more truer picture of what's actually going on here, and I'm quite happy to elaborate on it. So if I just read you a few passages, and then the purpose of this is to give a truer picture of what's going on, just given that there's a lot of scaremongering going on, I think, when talking of emissions, because people automatically think of CO2s rather than nitro. But yeah, first page on Fleet News magazine, which I think is great, is the new Passat advert. And just to read you this time of prints, so this is either absolute bravery. Drivers go green, so will non-drivers. The Passat Blue Motion means less in BIK tax, benefit in kind tax, reduces your firm's fuel costs and incurs no road tax. In fact, it's so efficient, even people who don't drive it are likely to feel a tad envious. And then it goes on to say official fuel consumption per 100 kilometres, 65.7 urban and 85.6 extra urban, combined 76.3. Now, we all know under test conditions on fuels for all manufacturers that there's a few discrepancies, so pattern occurring there. CO2 emissions 95 kilometres, information correct at time of print, and I really want to stress CO2 emissions there, because that's what certainly the UK measures tax on, CO2, not nitro emissions, where there's been some discrepancy. So anyway, just to read through quickly on this, 8 out of 10 fleet operators, so this is a research done by Fleet News, and I'd like to think they spoke to more than 10 fleet operators nationwide, because that could be done in 10 minutes, but 8 out of 10 was more of the whiskers. Expect implications in the UK fleet market. Well, that's natural, given that it's still quite high on people's media lists. Volkswagen Group cheated its official nitrogen oxide NOx emission tests in the US. In the US, the US has very, 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 very strict laws, and it's the US really that this was aimed at, in my opinion. Swell's research and insight questioned more than 460 fleet operators in the wake of the scandal. More than 460 fleet operators less likely to trust claims made by manufacturers in the future. Okay, well, MPGs aren't exactly right, and I'm sure there's quite a few other things that aren't quite right, but emissions at the moment is getting the most focus. Volkswagen Group, that the vehicles are not affected, although just 20% of larger fleets, 100 vehicles, say they have been contacted by the manufacturer to date. So we know right up to this point that Volkswagen have announced that between January and December of next year, then all the recalls will be done. So that really removes the problem from the marketplace in the UK. Volkswagen Group initially admitted using the so-called defeat devices on Volkswagen Audi models using 2-litre engines internally EA allowed the car to minimise emissions of NOx, nitrogen oxide, during official testing. But with this disabled feature in the real world driving, so okay, not ideal, but I guess the only people that they've fooled are the governing bodies who measure NOx. So it goes further on, and it was some information on the second page that really got me here, to do with residual values, because I believe that Glasses and CAT have come out and said that they don't expect there to be any change on this. 70% of larger fleets, 100 plus vehicles, agree that RVs on Volkswagen diesel cars could fall, not will, could. Swell's study, well, 57 believe RVs and all diesel cars could be affected, or that's all diesel cars. Rupert Ponton, head of valuations at Glasses, said exactly how this plays out is very difficult to predict. Dead right there. This could affect the used values of Audis and Volkswagens. These are all brands built on decades of credibility, and that credibility has been badly damaged. Yes, it has, and it's not been helped by the media. The engine found to have the defeat device in the US, United States, who go to war for oil, by the way, discontinued in 2014, but European governments, including the UK, want to investigate the matter further. Naturally, retesting vehicles in real-world conditions in relation to all emission levels in the official cycle tests, and I hope that happens because I think that'll clear a lot of things up. My personal opinion is that when it's retested in the UK based on our realistic figures, because we want diesel cars on the road, it's a big market, then that will clear up a lot of doubt, I think. For CO2 emissions and MPG, yeah, but we're not talking about CO2 emissions here. A new official test expected to be more representative of real-world conditions is currently being developed, with its introduction expected in 2020. Wow. However, some predict that the retesting cars in response to the recent events seek more representative real-world emission levels to tell us nothing new. The industry accepts that the current test method of cars is out of date, and is seeking agreements with the European Commission for new emissions, Let's see some action rather than, what might happen. Experts have speculated that the defeat device software helped cars comply with strict US emissions. Some people will say strict. I would prefer to say absolutely unrealistic, and they would rather people buy petrol because, hey, a lot of people died trying to get oil reserves for petrol needs. But anyway, that's my opinion. That might have had an impact on vehicle performance or drivability inactive continuously. The engine in question in the US was an older design of those available now. I think that's all kind of old news. An aim is to inform customers as quickly as possible to the vehicles. However, reports in Germany suggest that Bosch warned Volkswagen in 2007 it would be illegal to use the engine management software, and the manufacturer was also warned about its own engineers in 2011 about illegal emissions testing practices. Some commentators have suggested that the scandal may have implications for company car tax, with CO2 emissions deciding the appropriate benefit in kind. Yes, CO2 emissions do decide the appropriate benefit in kind, but nitro oxide emissions don't. So, in a nutshell, really, NOx is where the discrepancies are, and there's no taxing on NOx, only CO2 emissions. So from the big fleet perspective, then, I hope that helps. It's not an ideal situation to be in, but I'm thinking that this is pretty much for the US, and that the US is really where the discrepancy was, not the UK. And I'm sure test results will prove. Thank you.